Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your AEW Forbidden Door post show. Man, there is a lot to talk about in today's episode. We have multiple matches, obviously matches with superstars from New Japan, CMLL, and as well as obviously AEW. We'll talk all about that in today's episode. We'll give you guys the full rundown of the show and my thoughts of Forbidden Door, where I think we should go next with the Forbidden Door concept for AEW, and what I think is next for certain superstars going into the next pay-per-view, which I believe is going to be AEW's Redemption. So, starting out the night, though, we go into a tag team matchup, a triple threat tag team matchup, if you will. It is the Young Bucks taking on Shingo Takagi and Titan versus Mascara Dorada and Mystico from CMLL. Now, I thought this was a good match to open up Forbidden Door. It was a back-and-forth matchup with Mystico hitting a Hurricane Rana in the middle of the ring. Mystico then hits a springboard Hurricane Rana as well. Dorada gets involved by hitting an Enziguri, followed by a Hurricane Rana. Mystico then hits another springboard Hurricane Rana in the middle of the ring. Titan then hits a double Hurricane Rana on the Young Bucks in the middle of the ring. Dorada then hits a Power Slam. Matt Jackson then hits multiple Northern Light suplexes on Dorada in the middle of the ring. Takagi then gets involved, hits a DDT in the middle of the ring. Titan then hits a leg drop off the middle rope in the middle of the ring. Matt Jackson then hits a sliced bread on Titan. Mystico then hits a springboard crossbody, taking out the Young Bucks. Dorada then gets involved once again in the match by hitting a springboard shooting star press to the outside. Nick Jackson then hits a super kick on Dorada and Titan. Matt Jackson then hits a Canadian Destroyer on Mystico in the middle of the ring. Mystico then hits an Avalanche Spanish Fly for a near fall. Nick Jackson then hits a 450, but Dorada hits a shooting star press off the top rope to the middle of the ring. Mystico and Takagi both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Titan hitting a diving stomp for a near fall, but the Bucks hit a Meltzer driver in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner or winners of the match are the Young Bucks. Hats off to the Young Bucks for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a quote-unquote dream match, if you will. It is Zack Sabre Jr. from New Japan Pro Wrestling taking on Kenny Omega. Now, I thought this was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Sabre Jr. and Omega, with Sabre Jr. keeping the pace of the match. Omega hits a Hurricane Rana, followed by Omega sending Sabre Jr. head first into the announce table on the outside. Omega then hits a diving foot stomp off the apron. Sabre Jr. gets up, applies a submission on the announce table, but both Sabre Jr. and Omega fall off the announce table. Sabre Jr. then was working on the injured arm of Omega. Sabre then follows it up by hitting a Helluva Kick. Omega then hits a Kotaro Crusher in the middle of the ring, followed by a neck breaker. Sabre and Omega then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Omega hitting a knee strike on Sabre, followed by a Snapdragon Suplex. Omega then hits another Snapdragon Suplex on Sabre, followed by a V-Trigger. Omega then hits multiple knee strikes on Sabre, but Sabre gets up, applies an ankle lock on Omega in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Omega then hits a Poison Rana for a near fall, followed by a pile driver and a V-Trigger. Sabre then gets up, hits a Zack Driver in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Omega and Sabre then once again exchange in the middle of the ring, with Omega hitting a Snapdragon Suplex, followed by a knee strike. Omega then goes for a One-Winged Angel, but Sabre Jr. counters the One-Winged Angel. Omega then hits another knee strike, and Omega finally hits his signature One-Winged Angel on Sabre Jr. in the middle of the ring. Pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Kenny Omega. Hats off to Kenny Omega for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Continental title matchup. It is Jon Moxley from the Death Riders defending the Continental title against Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito. Now, I thought this was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Moxley and Bandito, with Moxley and Bandito both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Moxley hits a pile driver off the steel steps on Bandito, and Bandito is now busted wide open. Moxley was trying to tear the mask off of Bandito, with Moxley keeping the pace of the match. Bandito gets up, tries to get some offense in by hitting a power bomb on Jon Moxley. Moxley and Bandito then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Bandito hitting a Sky Twister on Jon Moxley. Bandito follows it up by hitting a running knee strike for a near fall, followed by a press slam. Bandito then goes to the top rope, goes for a frog splash, but Moxley counters it and had the knees up. Moxley then lands a big boot. Bandito then lands a big boot of his own on Moxley. Bandito then hits a release German suplex on Moxley. Bandito then goes for a 21-plex, but Moxley counters the 21-plex. Moxley then hits a Death Rider for a near fall in the middle of the ring. Bandito gets up, hits an avalanche fall-away slam for a near fall. Bandito then goes for a 21-plex, but Bandito slipped over the ropes to the outside of the ring. Moxley then applies a submission hold on Bandito. Bandito then tries to break the hold, but Moxley still has a submission. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match and still AEW Continental Champion is Jon Moxley. Hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Is for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. It is Shota Umino defending the IWGP Global Heavyweight title against Death Riders Pac. I thought it was a good match. It was a back and forth matchup between Pac and Umino, with Pac keeping the pace of the match. Umino hits a fisherman suplex for a near fall, followed by Umino hitting a slingshot DDT on Pac, landing on the apron. Umino then was hitting a draping DDT off the barricade, followed by Umino hitting a devastating powerbomb for a near fall. Pac then hits a over-the-head belly-to-belly suplex, sending Umino into the corner. Umino then brings out a table from underneath the ring, but Pac hits an outside moonsault to the outside, taking out Umino. Pac then hits an avalanche over-the-head belly-to-belly suplex for a near fall. Pac and Umino then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Pac hitting a release German suplex on Umino. Pac then hits a razor's edge, sending Umino over the ropes through a table on the outside. Pac then follows it up by hitting a 450 for a near fall. Pac then applies a brutalizer on Umino, but the hold is broken. Umino then gets up, hits a headbutt on Pac, followed by a running knee for a near fall. Pac gets up, hits a poison rana on Umino, but Umino hits a devastating lariat on Pac for a near fall. Umino then follows it up by hitting a paradigm shift and a Northern Lights bomb on Pac, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion is Shota Umino. After the match, you can see the Death Riders checking on Pac. Umino and Moxley are in the middle of the ring face to face, and after that, Tanahashi is here. Tanahashi comes down to the ring and celebrates with Shota Umino. Hats off to Shota for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the AEW Women's title. It is Tekla defending the AEW Women's Championship against Starlight Kid from Stardom. Now, I thought this was a decent match. It was a back and forth matchup between Tekla and Starlight, with Tekla keeping the pace of the match. Tekla then goes after the Stardom president, who was sitting ringside during this matchup. A little history there between Tekla and the Stardom president. Tekla then hits a spider suplex on Starlight. Starlight then gets up, hits a knee strike on Tekla. Starlight then hits a Falcon Arrow off the apron on Tekla, followed by a Fisherman suplex for a near fall. Tekla then hits a spear in the middle of the ring. Tekla and Starlight then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Tekla going for a spear, but Starlight counters it. Starlight then applies a submission hold on Tekla, but the hold is broken. Starlight then hits another Falcon Arrow-like maneuver on Tekla in the middle of the ring, followed by a moonsault for a near fall. Tekla then gets up, tries to get some offense in by hitting a spear on Starlight for a near fall, followed by 2 different foot stomps. After that, Tekla goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still AEW Women's Champion is Tekla. After the match, Tekla has a pair of scissors. Tekla then tears off the mask of Starlight Kid, and then Tekla shoves the mask into Stardom's president's face. Some interesting stuff there from Tekla, and hats off to Tekla for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have an AEW Tag Team Championship match. It is Copeland and Cage defending the AEW Tag Team titles against the Dogs. Now, I thought this was a decent match. It was a back and forth matchup between both teams, with Copeland and Cage keeping the pace of the match. Copeland hits an impaler in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Copeland then hits a suplex on Finlay, sending him into the corner, knocking off Clark Connors, and Connors falls off the top rope to the outside. Copeland then hits a spear for a near fall, but Finlay has a shillelagh. Copeland and Connors then hit a spear on each other in the middle of the ring. Finlay then hits Cage with a shillelagh, and all of a sudden the lights go out. And we look up to the ramp, and we see the Guns. We see Austin and Colton Gunn. We see Juice Robinson and Ace Austin. But after that, the lights go back out again. And then we hear a certain theme song being played. And all of a sudden, standing in the middle of the ring when the lights come back on is none other than the return of Switchblade Jay White. Jay White then hits a Blade Runner on Finlay in the middle of the ring. Jay then tells Copeland to get him. Copeland then hits a spear on Finlay in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match, and still AEW Tag Team Champions, are Copeland and Cage. Hats off to Copeland and Cage for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we're going to go into our next match of the night. It's the Owen Hart Cup Tournament Women's Final. It is Maya World taking on Mercedes Moné. Now, the winner of this matchup will obviously win the Owen, and if they win this match, they will get a title match at All In. Now, the match itself between Maya World and Mercedes Moné was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Maya World and Moné, with Maya keeping the pace of the match. Maya hits a senton off the apron to the outside, taking out Moné, followed by Maya hitting a suplex for a near fall. Moné then gets up, tries to get some offense in by hitting a Meteora off the apron, taking out Maya, followed by another Meteora off the apron as well. Maya then gets up, hits an Enziguri, followed by Maya hitting a springboard cutter for a near fall. Maya then hits a Shining Wizard. Moné then gets up, hits a 3 Amigos on Maya World. Moné then goes for a frog splash, but Maya had her knees up. Moné then applies a statement maker in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Maya then hits a fall-away slam-type maneuver, sending Moné through the ropes to the outside. Maya World then goes to the top rope, hits a swanton for a near fall. Moné then hits a Moné maker for a near fall. Maya then hits a devastating powerbomb off the apron to the outside, followed by an Asai moonsault to the outside. Maya then hits another moonsault for a near fall, and then Maya applies a statement maker of her own on Mercedes Moné. But the hold is broken. Moné then applies a statement maker, but the hold is broken, and Moné then applies another statement maker on Moné. This pretty much seals the deal for Moné, and your winner of the match and the winner of the Women's Owen Hart Cup Tournament is Mercedes Moné. Now, we'll talk more about this matchup at the end of today's episode. And moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Don Callis family and MJF taking on Team Briscoe in a steel cage match. Now, if Mark Briscoe's team wins this matchup, Mark Briscoe will get an opportunity at MJF's AEW World title. Now, the match itself, I thought, was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with the Don Callis family and MJF keeping the pace of the match. Andrade and MJF get face-to-face in the middle of the ring, with O'Reilly hitting Fletcher with a Super Nintendo. Briscoe then dumps a backpack full of tacks out to the wrestling mat. Fletcher is busted open. Doyle then sends Strong into the cage wall. Fletcher then sends O'Reilly into the turnbuckle pad as well. Fletcher then sends Briscoe onto the tacks. Darby then attacks Fletcher with a skateboard. MJF then hits a backdrop, sending Darby Allin into the tacks. MJF sweeps away the tacks. Orange Cassidy then hits a low blow using a broom on MJF, followed by Cassidy bringing out a Ziploc bag full of orange slices with a thank you card or thanks from Willow. Orange Cassidy then squeezes orange juice into Fletcher's eye. Okada and Takeshita are in the middle of the ring face-to-face. Okada and Takeshita both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Takeshita reaching into a backpack and then all of a sudden flips off Okada. Fletcher then hits a half and half. Fletcher then accidentally kicks Okada. This allowed Takeshita to hit a release German suplex on Okada and Kyle Fletcher. Darby Allin and Knight both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Darby hitting a code red on Knight. Doyle hits Darby with a chair shot. Kevin Knight then goes to the top rope, hits a coast-to-coast, using a chair on Darby Allin for a near fall. Briscoe then hits an exploder suplex. MJF then hits Briscoe with a chair shot, and Briscoe is busted wide open. MJF then has the Dynamite Diamond ring. Okada then opens up a bag that was ringside, and inside the bag is none other than Lio Rush. Lio then attacks Okada as well as Kevin Knight. Lio then hits a stunner on Andrade. Lio then wants the Dynamite Diamond ring, but Okada comes out of nowhere and hits a Rainmaker on Lio. Doyle then puts Lio back in the bag and tries to lock the bag with a chain. After this, Briscoe then hits everyone with a ladder in the middle of the ring. MJF and Briscoe then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Strong hitting an angle slam on Doyle off the apron through a table. Takeshita then hits a Poison Rana, followed by a backdrop on Okada on the apron. Takeshita then hits a devastating Blue Thunder Bomb off the apron on Fletcher through a table on the outside. MJF then hits a low blow on Briscoe, followed by MJF hitting Orange with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Darby then hits a Scorpion Death Drop, followed by a Coffin Drop on MJF. Kevin Knight then hits MJF accidentally with a UFO Splash. Kevin Knight and Darby Allin climb to the top of the cage. Pyro goes off, and Kevin Knight falls off the top of the cage through a table. Darby then hits a Coffin Drop off the top of the cage, taking out everyone. Briscoe then hits a Jay Drilla on MJF for a near fall. Doyle hits Briscoe with a chair shot. MJF then yells at Andrade to hold Briscoe up. Andrade then tells MJF no. Andrade ends up holding Briscoe, but Andrade lets go of Briscoe and hits a spinning back elbow, taking out MJF. Doyle was pissed off. Andrade hits a low blow on Doyle, and then Andrade reveals a shirt that he was wearing that says F.U. Don Callis and F.U. MJF. Briscoe then hits a Jay Driller on Doyle in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Team Briscoe. Hats off to Team Briscoe for getting the win in this matchup. And moving on from that, we go into our main event of the Forbidden Door. It is the Owen Hart Cup Tournament Final for the men's bracket. It is Will Ospreay taking on Swerve Strickland. Now, I thought this was a great match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Ospreay and Swerve, with Ospreay and Swerve both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Ospreay hits a Hurricane Rana, followed by Ospreay trying to keep the pace of the match. Swerve hits a rolling flatliner in the middle of the ring, followed by multiple neck breakers. Ospreay then hits an Enziguri, followed by a handspring Pele kick. Ospreay then hits a phenomenal forearm on Swerve. Ospreay then goes for a hidden blade, but Swerve counters it. Ospreay then was landing devastating forearm strikes on Swerve. Swerve then hits a power slam on Ospreay for a near fall. Swerve then exposes the bottom of the turnbuckle. Ospreay sends Swerve into the post on the outside. Ospreay then applies an armbar on the outside. Prince Nana then throws a coffee at Ospreay. Swerve then hits a powerbomb on Ospreay onto the apron. Swerve then sends Ospreay into the exposed turnbuckle. Ospreay is now busted wide open. Swerve then tells Ospreay, "This brotherhood don't mean shit to me, but this win means everything." Swerve then hits a suplex, followed by Swerve going for a house call, but Ospreay counters it with a Spanish fly. Ospreay then hits a stunner, followed by a Styles Clash for a near fall. Ospreay then hits a hidden blade on Swerve, but Swerve just ate it. It did nothing to Swerve. Swerve then hits a back elbow. Swerve then goes for an avalanche powerbomb, but Ospreay counters it with a Hurricane Rana. Ospreay then hits a hidden blade for a near fall on Swerve, but Swerve then takes a page out of Adam Page's playbook and hits a Deadeye for a near fall. Ospreay then sends Swerve into the steel steps. Swerve is busted wide open. Ospreay then is slamming Swerve headfirst into the steel steps. Nana then once again attacks Ospreay. Ospreay then goes to attack Nana, but Swerve quickly hits a house call on Ospreay on the outside. Ospreay then gets up, hits a Styles Clash, sending Swerve onto the announce table. Ospreay then follows it up by hitting an Os Cutter for a near fall. Swerve then Ospreay hits Swerve with an elbow strike. Referee is counting like it's a last man standing match for some reason. Swerve then hits a Swerve Stomp to the back of Ospreay, and Swerve then follows it up by hitting a house call. Ospreay then hits 2 hidden blades on Swerve, followed by a Stormbreaker for a near fall. Ospreay then goes for another hidden blade, but Swerve counters it, and Swerve hits a low blow on Ospreay. Swerve then hits a Vertebreaker for a near fall, and Swerve hits a hidden blade of his own on Will Ospreay. Swerve then hits a package power driver for a near fall. The Death Riders are here cheering on Ospreay. Swerve then hits a house call on Ospreay, and Ospreay ate it. Ospreay then quickly hits a hidden blade. Then Ospreay hits a buckshot hidden blade for a near fall, once again taking a page out of Adam Page's playbook. Ospreay then hits a Paradigm Shift, followed by a Death Rider, and then Ospreay seals the deal with a Tiger Driver on Swerve Strickland, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match. And moving on to Wembley Stadium is Will Ospreay. Hats off to Will Ospreay for getting the win in this matchup. Couple of things I want to talk about with you guys, man, before I get the hell up out of here when it pertains to the Forbidden Door. Was it a terrible, terrible show? No, it was not. AEW, here's the thing, bro. AEW showed you guys what they're all about at Forbidden Door. We all know the entire card that we saw from matches, whether it was Pac and Umino, to Jon Moxley, Bandito, to Maya World and Mercedes Moné, which we'll talk about here soon, Will Ospreay and Swerve. All these matches that we've seen at Forbidden Door tells you one thing about AEW. Something that we already been knowing about AEW, and something that's been prevalent throughout AEW's entire existence, that AEW and the wrestlers on AEW can wrestle their ass off. There's no doubt about that. The issue that I have with this, and I think this goes from a lot of people in the community, man, is that AEW has a very hard time telling story. There's not a damn thing on this card at Forbidden Door that screams story. I'm sorry. You can say MJF and Mark Briscoe. Okay, fine, maybe barely even a damn story. If you want to, you're talking about something that a story that they're going off of based on what happened at All Out last year in September. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not a lot of story going into Forbidden Door, and there's never going to be a story. You know what I mean? But you'll have matches, especially at this Forbidden Door, where you have AEW talent versus AEW talent with no damn story. Now, usually the Forbidden Door incorporates other companies, and that's the same thing they did with this Forbidden Door. They were working with New Japan, obviously, CMLL, as well as Stardom. Again, we understand the concept of the Forbidden Door. There's just no story. AEW, like I said, proved one thing to fans who don't know anything about AEW, is that they can wrestle. Yeah. I thought Pac and Shota Umino, man, was an incredible match. Incredible match. Ospreay Swerve, again, incredible match. Maya World and Mercedes Moné, which, again, we'll talk about here in a minute. Incredible match. We all are well aware of the fact that AEW can produce some of the best wrestling in the world. The problem with that is, though, is that we just need story. The when, the where, and the why. I've been saying it now for the past 2.5 years. We just need story. That's it. If AEW can solidify story, there'd be no problem here, folks. No problem at all. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not going to go out of my way to shit on this show. There were certain things about this show that I didn't understand, but I'm not going to completely shit on it, because there were some matches. There was at least 3 matches on this card that was very entertaining to me personally. And I think those 3 matches alone solidified Forbidden Door not being a completely shit show pay-per-view. You had Maya World, Mercedes Moné, you had Pac, Shota Umino, and you had Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. And if you want to add the cage match to that, you could possibly add the cage match to that as well. But the elephant in the room for me, well, there's multiple elephants in the room, but the one I really want to talk about is the Maya World, Mercedes Moné, Owen Hart Cup tournament final for the women's bracket. You know, I told you guys, I made these comments about Maya World that weren't bad. When I did my Dynamite review, and knowing that Maya World had made it to the finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Look, I understand this situation. I mean, originally this was supposed to be Sarie's spot. Sarie, unfortunately, was not able to be medically cleared to compete, and they brought in Maya World. And then, unfortunately, there was a situation in Maya's real life. She ended up losing her brother to a car accident or a hit and run, or some situation to that. Whether it was a car accident or a hit and run, I'm not 100% sure. But unfortunately, Maya World lost her brother. And it's shitty, and it's unfortunate, and I'm really sorry for her loss. I really am, genuinely. It's horrible. But this was a story, not a story, but this was something that they were pushing that as well. That, you know, she, you know, was dealing with all this loss, and she came in, she wanted to wrestle. Tony Khan gave her an opportunity, and gave her the opportunity to beat Sky Blue, and then move a little bit further in the tournament. Then she faced off against Athena. She beat Athena, and then we get to Mercedes Moné at Forbidden Door. Now, with that being said, Maya World, and this is where my issue with this really pisses me off, or could piss me off. First and foremost, Maya World did a hell of a job at Forbidden Door to showcase her talents against Mercedes Moné. That, to me, I can tell you guys right now, that match that Maya World had against Moné, that was one of Moné's toughest opponents to date. I'm going to tell you all that right now. Maya World did an incredible job in that match up against Moné to showcase her talent and what she can do inside that squared circle. In that ring. 100%. The other thing I want to say, too, is that my worry and I told you guys about this when it pertains to Maya World, is that if you're going to have her win against Sky Blue and Athena, then you need to push this girl to the moon. And that's not what happened. Mercedes Moné beat Maya World, and Moné now is a 2-time Owen Hart Cup winner, and she's moving on to Wembley Stadium. Now, a lot of people are going to be very subjective with that because they're like, well, it's Mercedes Moné, it's the bigger name, and she's going into Wembley Stadium to probably challenge Tekla for the AEW World title. Look, I'm not against that. You know, All In is AEW's WrestleMania. You want the biggest names a part of that show, and they're going to be back at Wembley. So they're going to load this card up the best possible way they can with the talent and resources that AEW has, no doubt about it. But because Moné, just because Maya World had lost, and what we saw at a Maya World in this match against Moné, I don't want them to stifle this woman. I think she's an incredible talent. I think she has a very high ceiling in AEW if they decide to use her, Tony Khan, to bring her into the fold of AEW and make her a household name. This is something that Tony Khan has a hard time doing, in building younger stars on AEW television. And the reason why I know this is probably not going to happen with Maya World being a predominant figure on AEW television is because Athena was at Forbidden Door, saw the match that Maya World had with Moné, and then Athena calls out Maya World for a matchup for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. So it looks like Maya World is going to once again go back to Ring of Honor. And to me, that's something that does piss me the fuck off. It really does. Well, I mean, look, I understand she was filling a void being Maya World because Sareed was not medically cleared. But the fact that you pushed her against Sky Blue, you had her beat Athena, you know, you saw something in this girl to put her in the tournament. Then everybody felt so, and still feel bad for Maya World because of the real life situation that she had to deal with. She lost her brother. You know what I'm saying? And everybody was like, damn, man, it's fucked up. But this girl's still here. She's still wrestling. She still wants to be here. She wants to wrestle. She's wrestling for her brother. So a lot of fans were gravitating towards Maya World. They felt bad for Maya. You know what I mean? This girl's going through a lot of shit right now. She just lost her brother. A lot of fans were gravitating towards Maya World. And even in this match that Maya had with Moné, the crowd was split with Maya World and Mercedes Moné. So a lot of fans were behind Maya World. They believed in Maya. They wanted Maya to possibly beat Moné and win the Owen Hart Cup tournament final. And I don't want Tony Khan to stifle that momentum that this girl has. That's how you build younger stars, man. And Maya World did everything in her power to try to win that matchup against Moné. And she did an incredible job, man. Incredible job. But like I said, my biggest downfall of this is this going to be one and done for Maya World. And is Maya going to go back to the depths of Ring of Honor or barely being shown on AEW television? And if that's the case, it's fucking horrible. That's absolutely fucking horrible. Because you could build a star with Maya World after the performance that she just had at Forbidden Door. So we'll see how that plays out. We also had the steel cage match. MJF and the Don Callis family taking on Team Briscoe. First and foremost, I didn't even know how the hell they were going to have this matchup. I thought it was going to be a regular cage with 12 individuals in this one cage. I even told you guys, how in the hell are they going to play this out? Now, the cage had a lot of modifications. This cage was huge. They called it, I think, the Death Cage, a cage of death or some shit like that. It was a huge oval-shaped cage that fit around the entire ring. There was even room for the wrestlers to fight on the outside. I mean, this was a huge oval cage. The match itself, I did not hate the match. A lot of things happened in that match. I was excited for Andrade. It seemed like Andrade's going to go his own path and walk away from the Don Callis family, similar to what Takeshita did after he became international champion. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Look, at the end of the day, Andrade is a guy that should be in the conversation for an AEW World title. I said that last week. I'm going to say that this week. Andrade is a guy that should be in the conversation for an AEW World title opportunity. 100%. With Briscoe winning the match, you know, after the match was done, you saw Briscoe backstage with Renee, and Briscoe wasted no time. Briscoe called out MJF. He's going to get his title match this week on Dynamite. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out between MJF and Mark Briscoe. Because MJF's defending the belt against Mark at this week's Dynamite. Now, Mark could win There could be a situation here where we get Mark Briscoe versus Kenny Omega at AEW's Redemption, and Kenny Omega beats Mark Briscoe, and Omega becomes a new AEW World Champion, and then we get Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay at Wembley Stadium. That's another possibility. Or maybe MJF does beat Briscoe. I don't know. You can never really trust the ideas and the creative that AEW and Tony Khan have, because the creative team for AEW is fucking horrible. We're going to see how this plays out for Briscoe. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's going to be something where they have Briscoe win the belt on Wednesday on Dynamite, and then he goes into Retribution, faces off against Kenny Omega, and he drops the belt. I don't know. Or he might not beat MJF. I don't know. I have no idea how this is going to play out for Briscoe and MJF. Tekla and Starlight Kid did an incredible job as well. Obviously, there's some history there between Tekla and Stardom. I thought that was an incredible match as well. And the other big thing was the return. We finally get the return of Jay White, man. Thank God. Thank God, bro. That tag team matchup between Clopen and Cage and the Dogs, it was a decent match. But I think the highlight of that match was when all of a sudden out of nowhere we see, the Bullet Club Gold, if you will, or the Bang Bang Gang, if you will. And we see Austin Creed and Colton Gunn and Ace Austin and Juice Robinson standing on the stage, and we're like, well, what the fuck is going on here? Why are all these guys standing at the stage? And all of a sudden the lights go back out, and then we hear the Switchblade theme music, and the lights come back on, and we see Jay White, after being gone for about a year, standing in the middle of the ring, hits a Blade Runner on David Finlay, calls Finlay and the Dogs the match, and it was an incredible moment. Jay White has been gone for about a year, you know what I mean? And now having him back in the fold, back in the main event scene, it's another upgrade for AEW. There's a lot of names out right now for AEW, bro, that need to come back. Adam Page, he's taking a little bit of a hiatus. Tony Storm, no one really knows what's going on with Tony Storm. Britt Baker, Keith Lee, Wardlow, Adam Cole, if he decides to come back, if he's healthy to come back. I mean, there's a lot of names that are missing, bro, that could really highlight this show and put him in a better direction. And Jay White's one of them. And I'm happy that he's back. I'm happy that he's back in the fold with, the Gun Club and all that stuff, and Juice Robinson and Ace Austin. I'm glad Jay White's back, because Jay White is a main event guy. Absolutely. Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland, I mean, what more can I say, man? You got two guys that are at the pinnacle of the sport. Swerve's a top guy. Obviously, Will Ospreay is a top guy. And these two guys killed it, man. I mean, from Ospreay coming out the ring dressed like Bane to Swerve Strickland coming out to the ring dressed and looking like Lobo. I thought that was awesome. But both these guys killed it, man. I mean, you're going to look at a guy like Swerve and Ospreay and know that you're going to get an incredible match, no matter who they're facing off against or facing off against each other. And it was a great match, man. This is Ospreay's time to be AEW World Champion. Going into Wembley, and crowning Ospreay the AEW World Champion, I think it's time. 100%. It's going to be a great moment for AEW. It's going to be a great moment for Will Ospreay to win the AEW World title in England. I think it's going to be great. But who he faces against, I don't know. It could be Briscoe, could be MJF, could be Kenny Omega. It's going to be very interesting and very telling to see what happens for, us leading into All In this year, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, hell, like I said, we got an AEW title match this week on Dynamite between MJF and Mark Briscoe this week on Dynamite. It's going to be very telling to see how that match plays out as well. But yeah, man, I mean, look, was this double or nothing? Absolutely not. No. Forbidden Door showed you one thing, that AEW wrestlers can wrestle, but there's no story. Now, do I believe that the concept of the Forbidden Door needs to be closed, and that key needs to be buried somewhere or buried out in the fucking ocean and never be reopened again? Absolutely. I don't see... and look, I'm not too familiar with New Japan, and I'm not extremely familiar with CMLL, and I damn sure don't really know much about Stardom. But what I will say is this, it's not the same anymore, bro. I mean, a lot of the top talent in New Japan Pro Wrestling, even at this very moment, are working with AEW, whether you like it or not. You have some of the biggest stars ever coming out of New Japan that are now employed with AEW. You got Okada, you got Kenny Omega, you got the Bucks, you got Adam Page, Will Ospreay. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on New Japan, but there's not a lot of talent right now on New Japan's side that speaks holy shit right now. CMLL, yeah, I mean, they got some top names. Persephone, Mystico and Moscow Dorada. But I've also made this well aware to a lot of people too, and I'm going to make it aware to a lot of people even now. Yes, they are employed with CMML, being Mystico, Dorada, and Persephone. But all three of those talents are also signed to a multi-contract deal with CMML as well as AEW. So they're also AEW talent as well. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know how it's really that much Forbidden Door. I mean, to me, yeah, Starlight Kid, Shingo Takagi, and, Teton and Umino. Yeah, I guess that screams, Forbidden Door. But a lot of this was AEW versus AEW. Let's just keep it a buck. You know what I mean? I think the concept of the Forbidden Door needs to die. I don't know if they, take out the Forbidden Door and make a new pay-per-view and take out the Forbidden Door. I just think the concept has died, bro. I mean, the first 2 years of Forbidden Door, that's one thing. But now, we're 5 years in, or 7 years in, whatever. And it's just the concept has progressively gotten worse and worse and worse and worse over time. They're sitting here saying that some of these matches have global ramifications. For what? Kenny Omega to go over to New Japan Pro Wrestling and challenge for the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion? No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Oh, it's got global ramifications according to, the commentary team. Nigel McGuinness and all that. What global ramifications does it have? Really? You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, man. I genuinely feel like the idea of the Forbidden Door needs to come to an end. Period end. I don't see how this benefits AEW or New Japan or CMML. I just don't. I don't think New Japan has the talent. I just don't. I think New Japan is in a hard times right now, I believe, for New Japan Pro Wrestling. To be honest with you. I mean, hell, bro, we saw Tanahashi come out at Forbidden Door, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? But Tanahashi just comes out, he looks around, he looks at Jon Moxley, he looks at Shota Umino, and then he takes the belt and puts it on Shota Umino, and then he just walks back to the back. It's like, all right, what the hell was the point? What, just to see Tanahashi? Great, nice to see you, bud. And he walks to the back. New Japan's not the same, man. New Japan is a company that I would go out of the way to say that New Japan might not be even the number one company in Japan anymore. And there might be other companies in Japan on the heels of New Japan. Maybe Pro Wrestling Noah. All Japan Pro Wrestling's on the rise, I heard, through the grapevine. Maybe there's other companies in Japan that are more on the uprise than what New Japan Pro Wrestling's doing. I'm just saying. It's not the same. A lot of the top talent that were on New Japan Pro Wrestling are now employed with AEW. I mean, hell, if you look at Kenny Omega, Okada, and Ospreay alone, I mean, there's your top three guys right there, gone. And they're all wrestling for AEW. So, I mean, again, I will ask you, with all due respect to the fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling, who do y'all got that's really worth a damn? To be honest with you, what, Zack Sabre Jr., bro? Come on, man. Nah. Absolutely not. And that's not taking anything away from Zack Sabre Jr. I think he's a great technical wrestler. But do I look at Sabre Jr. as a top guy in New Japan Pro Wrestling? Absolutely fucking not. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think Forbidden Door, it served its purpose. I think what we got out of this year's Forbidden Door was the best that we're going to get out of a card that they just slapped together. But I think the concept of the Forbidden Door needs to die. I think it's over. I don't see the reason why this event or this type of event needs to continue. It's lackluster, and a lot of even this year's Forbidden Door, like I said, it was AEW versus AEW talent. So what's the point of it being called the Forbidden Door? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, to me, it's just that whole concept of the Forbidden Door has run its course. That well has run dry, and that's it. Game over. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm looking forward to Dynamite. We have TBS, the Crown of New TBS champion on Dynamite. We have MJF defending the AEW World title against Mark Briscoe. I'm sure we're going to hear some of the other wrestlers. Maybe hear from Jay White. That would be great as well. But again, July, that's the other thing too, that July, from what I understand, July is going to be very important in pro wrestling and very important in AEW, because I think you have some high-profile talents that are going to be available to, sign on to AEW, that are going to be free agents that are able to sign wherever they damn well please. You got, Motor City Machine Guns. You got the New Day, Kofi and Xavier Woods, Kairi Sane. The entire Wyatt Six stable, if they decide to wrestle again, are also free agents. So, I mean, again, I'm just saying, man, July is going to be very interesting going into All In. Absolutely. It's going to be very telling. And again, AEW and Tony Khan are going to do whatever they can to stack the card for All In, because All In, to me, in my opinion, is AEW's WrestleMania. It's their biggest show of the calendar year. And they're going to try to load this card up, and rightfully so. They're also, if you think about it, you got, in late August, you got, All In. Early August, they got SummerSlam for WWE. You don't think they're not going to stack that card for SummerSlam? You better believe it. You better believe it. You know what I mean? So again, it's going to be very telling to see what happens with AEW now for the next, couple weeks, next month. To see what happens see what goes on with AEW, knowing that we got some free agents out there that are looking to possibly sign with AEW. Might improve AEW's tag team division as well. So we're going to see how it plays out, man. Like I said, at the end of the day with Forbidden Door, was I completely disappointed? No. I'm not going to sit here and shit on the show and say, it was one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. No. I think there was about 3 to 4 matches on the card that were very entertaining. We got the return of Jay White. And I'm looking forward to Dynamite this week. We got a title match between MJF and Briscoe that I'm looking forward to. And we're also, I think, going to crown a new TBS champion as well on AEW Dynamite this week as well. So I'm excited for that as well. But I think Forbidden Door, it served its purpose. I think the concept and the pay-per-view itself needs to go away. They need to close that door permanently and bury that damn thing somewhere out in the ocean and never open that door ever again. Will they do that? I doubt it. But I genuinely believe that the concept of the Forbidden Door pay-per-view is dead. I think it's over. I think it's been over for a while now, and I think AEW needs to move on from the Forbidden Door concept as far as pay-per-views are concerned. But with that being said, though, this is my review of AEW's Forbidden Door. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.